people who are trying to teach me what I want to know, and am I trying right? And the answer is fucking no every time. Feeling depressed is real. Depression as a disease, I do not subscribe to. The idea, I believe, that if you feel depressed, something is depressing you, and you should try your best to fix it. You should take control of your life and do your best. The idea, but they don't say that. They don't talk that. They say depression like it's this magic thing that comes out the sky and it gets in your brain. You're sad no matter what. There's nothing you can do about it, and you need to only take pills. And I think that's a very bad way to look at the world, and that's a bad idea to subscribe to. And if you start to feel depressed, let's say your girl leaves you and you start to feel depressed, but you believe in the idea of depression, you're now going to start diagnosing yourself as clinically depressed, self-hypnosing yourself into hypnotizing yourself into being clinically depressed. And it's amazing how you can speak things into existence. I cannot become depressed because I don't believe in it. So it doesn't matter. We're talking about the different positions on the chessboard. But if the rules of the game remain the same, regardless of the position you're still trying to win, you still have to do the same things. So does it even matter at this point? If you come along and say he's depressed because of X, and he's depressed because of Y, and he's depressed because of Z, and the answer to all of them is still the same thing, then I don't give a fuck why you're depressed. All I know, what I will say as a matter of fact, is this world is hyper competitive, especially as a man. Most men are walking through life and they don't realize that it's constant competition. I was driving here, even as I was driving here, I was looking out the window and I was looking at all these people just walking around. One of them had a fucking croissant. One of them was dressed like a dickhead because it's London. He thinks he looks cool. Looks like a fucking moron.
We've all seen them.
Yeah, moron. Some of the dude just talking shit on the phone. Some other guy with headphones in, waiting to be fucking murdered, wouldn't even hear it coming. And all these NPCs, I'm just looking at them going, do they realize they're in endless, constant competition? Every single pound they want, someone else wants. Every single girl they want, someone else wants. There are people like me out here. I will destroy, you could get all 30 of them in a room and I will sit by myself and absolutely annihilate them in any single metric. And they're just sitting there just fucking floundering and wandering through life, unaware of how competitive the world is.
Well, and whinging how unfair it is.
And how unfair it is. And this is my point. If the world is truly that competitive, you do not have time to be depressed because it's a non-competitive mind state. You could be depressed for X, Y, Z, whatever. I'm not depressed. And I want the money you want, and I want the girl you want, and I want the status you want, and the car you want, and the house you want. And I'm gonna get it, and you're fucking not. I truthfully believe that the universe is a very giving place. And I don't want to sound, airy-fairy, but I truthfully believe that the universe is a giving place, and that if you actually really want something, you can have it. How much you want is how much you're prepared to sacrifice. So if you want $500,000 a year, you can definitely make that. And that level of stress you'll absorb for that money and the amount of headache you'll go through, if that's the amount you're prepared to accept for a happy life, you'll have it. I think that you have to pre-decide, right? So even my level of wealth comes with enormous stress. Governments are after me. Like most people are not mentally prepared for the bullshit I go through. So the number one factor that's going to decide how successful you are as a person is your ability to absorb stress, your stress level. The better you are at dealing with stress, the more problems you can fix, the more money you're going to make. So you have to decide where on that scale, because you could just be homeless and have no stress. Right? You could be a brokey and be on the dole and just, I'm broke, but nothing really troubles me. So you have to decide on that level where you want, how much stress you can possibly absorb as a man. And then if you truly want that level, you're going to get it. I believe any man can make anything they want, depending. Any one of you here, I have no idea how much money you're making, but if you were to say, you know what, I'm throwing away my relationship, I'm throwing away my social life, and I'm going ham, I'm going nuts, and I don't care what they do to me, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make it. You'd make a bunch of money, but there's a bunch of garbage that comes with it. So you have to decide, right? I sit here as a billionaire, and I sit and say, I will teach you how to make money online, anybody, 18 modern wealth creation methods, it's $49 a month, and I will teach you. And people will sit there in their brutal arrogance, and as a brokey, with no money, and go, yeah, but can he really teach me? I have everything you've ever fucking dreamed of. I have all the money. You have nothing, and you're so arrogant that you believe you know more than me, or that you can do it without me, or that I don't know how to teach you. The arrogance of people is truly mind-bending. If you know so much, why are you broke? You obviously don't know. If I wanted to learn how to box, I wouldn't walk into a boxing gym, find a guy who can box and go, yeah, not bad, but can he really punch? Like, this is how people think when it comes to money. You guys are all successful enough. You can sit there and say, look, I do X, Y, Z. I have X, Y, Z. You don't have it. So do you want to learn how to play piano from the piano teacher, or do you want to sit there as an arrogant brokey? Most people are brutally arrogant. And you can sit there and you can try and help them, and they're just so arrogant. They think, oh, I can do it myself, or I'll work it out myself. I don't need help. And it's arrogance, and it keeps them at the bottom. Everything great that's happened to me in my life, someone taught me. I had a kickboxing coach. My dad was my chess coach. You get taught things. To sit there and think you're too good to learn, well, this is the problem. Most people are broke. Most people are broke because they're arrogant. It's the truth. It's nothing to do with how stupid they are. They're just arrogant people. So if you love your family and you love your last name and you're proud of yourself, then you have a duty to be massively, monumentally successful, to show homage to your ancestors. I find it amazing there are people out here today who are going to sit and say, oh, I'm sad, I'm too depressed, I don't want to work hard. Do you understand that only 200 years ago, there were peasants out working a field, starving, surviving the Black Death, surviving the plague, struggling to exist just to reproduce, so that 200 years later, you can be the end of their bloodline, for you to sit on your ass and do fucking nothing. Like, you're a fuck up. You're fucking up your entire bloodline of your entire ancestry. You owe these people things. They went through hell for you to exist. You have a debt, you have a duty to pay. You have to be the best possible version of yourself. And the same to God. God loves people who try. God loves people who work hard. It's amazing if you try your very best all the time, what God will give you. He'll give it to you, anything you want, if you actually try. Not convincing yourself you try, actually try. They're different things. But yeah, I was instilled with this because from a young age, my dad said, you're a Tate, and Tates are the greatest people on the face of the planet, and there's gonna be a day I'm not here anymore, and they're gonna talk about me because of how fantastic you are. So go do your fucking job. I said, yes, sir, and here I am. One of the most terrifying but also gratifying things of life as a man is that we're all born relatively valueless. I don't think women are born that way. A woman, if she's born, especially if she's attractive, has an innate value. People just want her no matter what. But as a man, if you're not an important man, nobody gives a fuck about you, and they're never gonna care. So you have to build yourself from the ground up, and that's scary for a lot of people, but it's also a massive opportunity. You can decide if you wanna be a famous musician, or a nice sensitive poet, or a painter, or a kickboxing world champion, or a businessman. You get to decide on all the different characters in the video game. You can choose, who do I wanna be? And then if you actually try, you can become it. Isn't that amazing? You can wake up and go, you know what, I wanna be this kind of guy. I knew who I wanted to be. I wanted to be the dude pulling up in the Lambo, 3 a.m, gets out. Everyone's like, who is this big, strong, rich dude? I wanted to be that man, so I became it. And if you don't want that, if you want to go be a musician and play guitar and get a bunch of chicks and chill in Bali and smoke weed, whatever, go, you can choose your character and build it.
The problem is as well, it's difficult because the way that humans work and the way that we've evolved as a species is that we don't really learn lessons unless they're learned the hard way. I believe that unless a lesson is taught the hard way, you're not going to learn it. You can have so many near misses and people won't learn their lesson. Bro, you must know a guy who goes out there, nearly crashes his car, doesn't slow his ass down till he wrecks it. Like, this is how people are, right? So you need that pain for the lesson to sting enough to really genuinely go inside of your mind. And it's the same with everything. It's the same with driving a car or business. Truthfully, if you want to learn a lesson about business, you're going to have to suffer at some point, right? So we always say that most people are not successful with their first companies, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. I get that. The truth is there's a lot of people who make a lot of money with their first company, but they just spunk it, act an idiot, and it all blows up in their face. And that's how you get the discipline on your fourth company, that when you have 3 million in the bank, you just leave it there. You know, and don't be done with it. So you need to go through some pain. You need to experience some negative things. You need to have to a degree some trauma to really even learn any lessons. So that you make sure it doesn't happen again. I really think that humans are stupid enough to only learn the hard way. That's kind of how it works. The saying, if you know what you have, you ain't got much, that is completely true. I don't have a clue how much money I have. When I was broke, I knew exactly how much money I had. I had 117 pounds in the NatWest, and that was it. I'm poor, rent's paid, I ain't got nothing else. When I was broke, I knew exactly how much I had, but now I'm at a point where it gets really difficult to truly measure how much money I have, because you have cash, okay, that's easy. Even then, once you have a healthy respect for money, once you get past a certain amount of money, you don't need it in the bank. Like, there's no point in me having 50M liquid in the bank. Why? What am I gonna buy? You know, you're like, as long as you have whatever you have in the bank to run around the world with, you have enough. So you try and put that money to use, right? You buy assets, XYZ.
I don't believe in motivation as a concept. I believe in discipline and divine purpose. People who ask about motivation are basically saying, I don't feel like doing this. How do I feel like doing this? And the answer is, the true red pill is, you're never going to feel like doing it all of the time. Sometimes you're not going to want to do it. Doesn't matter what it is. If I were to tell you to go fucking surfing or skateboarding or driving a Ferrari every day, there's going to be days you wake up where you just don't feel like doing it, no matter how fun it is. That's life. But if you do not do it when you don't feel like doing it, you will never perform against the person who does it regardless of how they feel. You have to make a decision. Forget about the idea of motivation. Forget about the concept of it. Throw it away and decide who you are. And this is a genuine task for you all to complete. Go look in the mirror, look into your own eyes and decide, am I a fucking loser or am I a winner? Because if you're only going to do what you feel like doing, you are a loser. That is the definition of a loser. A man who only does what he feels like doing is going to lose against the people who perform regardless. If you lose, what are you? A fucking loser. I decided I was a winner, and I knew what it took to win. To win, I have to perform day after day, so I decided I'm going to do this every day, regardless of how I feel. Some days I'll enjoy it, some days I won't, some days it'll be fun, some days it won't. But I'm going to do it every single day to the best of my ability. I will not allow my emotional state to affect my actions. That's what winners do. And you've agreed to fight on the 13th of July. That day comes around. You might feel like fighting. You might feel like kicking someone's ass. You might not feel like fighting. You might be a little bit sick. But it's the day. The arena's booked. You have to fight. So you don't get to say, well, I don't feel like it now. You don't get to lose and tell people, well, I didn't feel like it on that day. You just have to do it. You have to be good enough on your worst day to beat your opponent on his best day. It might be your worst day. It might be his best day. You still have to fight. And you still have to win. That's the game. So when people ask me about motivation, I make it very clear. I say, listen, motivation has nothing to do with any of this. This is about who you are. It's about your purpose, your divine purpose given to you, dictated by God. Are you the kind of person who lives a life worth living, or are you a fucking loser? Now, watching this, there's going to be some of you which fall into each category. You're not all winners. You're in the right place. But some of you are probably still lazy losers. That's the reality.
I made the choice to do it all. For 10 years of my life, I was never comfortable because I put myself through hell. I put myself through hell because I decided to throw comfort away. Men think it's okay to just become comfortable now. You're not supposed to be comfortable. You were never evolved to be comfortable. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. If you were born 100 years ago and it was the 1920s, you'd be in some ditch in northern France, living in the fucking mud, hoping not to get killed by a random sniper in some bullshit war you barely understand for 4 years. Then you'd come home and hope your wife hasn't been bombed. That's the world. The world has become exceptionally easy for a lot of men. It used to be a different place. Most men were cannon fodder. Most of us would have ended up in wars, dying for fucking no reason. And me as a man, when I put myself through hell, when I have had such exacting, such stringent standards for myself, why would I then have less exacting, stringent standards on the people I meet? Damn. Why would I put myself through hell to be me and then meet someone who didn't put themselves through hell and then treat them like my equal? No, fuck you. I suffered when you didn't. So you're not my equal because you decided not to suffer. You have enjoyed comfort when I haven't, and that's fine, but don't expect me to look at you as my equal because you're not. I'll snap your fucking neck. I can never be depressed if I never slow down. Speed is extremely important. Speed defies gravity. How does a plane fly through the air and defy gravity? Speed. It's moving too fast to fall. If you're always attacking life, if you're always doing things, if you're always making more money, if you're always traveling the world, doing this, doing that, new car, here, there, new podcast, meeting James English, boom, boom, boom. If you're always doing things all the time, unhappiness can't catch you. But I also know that speed is a fantastic way to be happy all the time. I'm always looking forward to something. I wake up every day excited. Oh, I'll go do this today. I'll go do this today. I'll go do this today. And I very much live my life in a frame of, no, I have to do this. It's very much a, I get to do this. There's another thing that a lot of people make a mistake with when I talk to them. Like, I have to go to work today. Change your language. I get to go to work today. Imagine you had no job. It'd be worse, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be working. So you get to go to work. I have to fix the car. At least you have a car. You get to fix your car. Most people don't got one. I have to go get the kids. You get to go get the kids because you have these beautiful children who love you. If we were still in the animal kingdom, the lions that you see on TV, they weren't just born big lions. They had to fight other lions. They had to fight to get that antelope. They had to fight other animals, hyenas, jackals. They had to fight to be the boss. We're living in a comfortable world now where people think, it doesn't matter. But you know what? To some degree, it does matter. It does matter. And I'll tell you who it matters to. It matters to your soul and it matters to God. I stand in the mirror with a pure heart. I know I am the best version of me that could possibly ever exist. I know that God is proud of me. There's nothing that God hates more than sloth and laziness. If God were to create a man and that man were to sit around and do all, God will frown upon you. It's why you're never lucky. If you're listening to this and you think I'm never lucky, I'll tell you why, because God dislikes you because you're fucking lazy. Start to work. Start to show God the beauty of his own creations. You'd be amazed how lucky you'll become. Wow. God is unhappy with these people. And inside their hearts, they're unhappy. We talk about depression, anxiety, all those things you mentioned earlier on this podcast. That comes from self-loathing. You loathe your own weakness. You loathe your own laziness. This is what all of these things are. I don't feel depression. How can I feel depression when I'm the most powerful version of me that I could ever fucking be? How can I feel depression when I could squeeze my own hand hard enough to break my own bones? How can I feel depression when I've smashed and destroyed 68 people's faces in front of me, men who thought they could test me in fair combat? How can I feel depressed? It's impossible. This is what the beautiful thing about being a man is, right? It's because being a man is difficult. It's so much harder than being a woman. Being a man is hard mode. But just like you play the video game on hard mode, when you win, you get a higher score. There is no better existence than a top tier male. I think that most people failing in life know very well they're failing. And it doesn't matter what avatar you decide to absorb or who you decide to be. You can decide to be it, and you know true in your heart if you're giving 100% of your energy towards becoming it or not. Doesn't matter if you want to become a famous musician. Doesn't matter if you want to become a bodybuilder. Doesn't matter if you want to become a pro fighter. Doesn't matter what you want to be. You know in your heart if you're actually trying or not. You have to decide what you want to be and try and become it. And a lot of the people who are genuinely unhappy or miserable in their hearts know they're not trying to. I actually believe, and this is another thing I'll say, I believe the universe is very giving. I think the universe and God himself is very giving. I've yet to meet somebody in all my years who's genuinely giving 100% of themselves day after day, doesn't snake anyone, firm handshake, look you in the eye, doesn't lie to nobody, and tries 100% and doesn't get what they want. I've never seen it. Every single person who doesn't have what they want, there's something in their story that doesn't quite add up. I've yet to see some guy have you ever seen a guy who eats right and trains his ass off and never misses a gym session, ever not grow? It's just, that's the way the universe works, right? So if you're truly about it and you're truly trying your absolute best, you're going to do it. And that's what I believe. I believe the universe is extremely giving. So when I meet somebody and they go, I really wanted this and I don't have it, I say, you didn't really want it. I think we're here to struggle. I think we're here to go through pain. That's how I wake up each day and go, what can I attack? What problem can I solve? And look at history. Why did Genghis Khan wake up and want to conquer the whole world? Why did Napoleon conquer the world? Why did Alexander the Great conquer the world? You just wake up and just say, give me this, give me that. I want all of it. I need to, there's an army there. They're really big. We're better. It's intrinsic. Yeah. You need to go and conquer. That's the purpose of life. Because if you don't struggle, you don't learn. Yeah. God created us to learn and understand ourselves and understand other people and understand the world. And what did I say earlier? I said that you don't learn a lesson or you don't appreciate something without pain. So you have to struggle to learn anything. There's only two ways to learn things, the hard way or the harder way. If you're smart, you can learn the hard way. But in my experience, 99% of the planet only learn the hardest possible way. If the lesson's even 85% effective, they'll make the same mistake. It's only when they completely decimate and destroy an element of their life do they sit there and go, oh, oops, now I get it. No. That's how it goes. How much money you make. If you're a bad person, you're not going to feel happy. I don't care how much money you make. If you snake people or lie to people or do bad to people, you're never going to feel happy true deep in your heart. True in your heart, we're intrinsically designed to do right and do good. And that's something that God gave us. And when you have that, you understand that that's more important than anything else. So these people who are up here promoting degeneracy, saying, take Percocets and bang girls and drink vodka and you're going to be, going to be great. I drink. I'm not saying I don't drink, but that's not my message, right? Yeah. And those people are never truly happy, and they're trying to purport that and convince people to do the same, so that the whole populace is never truly happy. And like I said, now we go in circles. We've already discussed why they don't want us to be happy. Exactly, so that's why. And you want to feel content, and you want to feel stable inside of yourself. You need to live true to God. And I'm not saying you can't drink a little bit of alcohol or not party or not have a little bit of fun, but you have to be a good person.
You have to balance life.
You have to balance life. You have to be a good person overall. I know I'm a good person, and when the Matrix is trying to convince the world that I'm not, that just proves even further that I'm a good person. The world we now live in today, when the mass media machine is trying to tell you somebody is evil, you can know pretty well that person's probably good, and vice versa. Like, there's a reason they are trying so hard to convince people to ignore their own ears. People listen to my message and go, that's a positive message. And the media exchange is going, no, it's not positive. He's bad. They're trying to brainwash you. I don't believe in the societal paradigms in which they have tried to construct this idea of happiness. I don't believe or subscribe to the way that happy and sad is currently understood by the masses of the population. I think if you are anything less than absolutely distraught, you are happy. You're a version of happy. It's like saying gray is a version of black, right? No matter how light the gray is, you can still call it a version of black. And unless you've gone through an event, which hopefully doesn't happen too often, like the passing of a family member or something that's truly destructive and detrimental to your mindset, besides these events, which hopefully only happen a few times in your life, you should be happy. If you're not crying or paralyzed in silence due to the absolute magnitude of a detrimental circumstance or the absolute magnitude of a negative event, then you are a version of happy. So I am always happy. happy is the short answer. I don't believe in not being happy. I don't believe in not saying to myself I'm happy. I'm always a version of happy. And this idea of chasing happiness and always being concerned and preoccupied with how happy you are is actually the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, I think, in the world today, especially men who wake up and go, oh, I don't really feel happy, so I need to get happier. And that's how they end up down a hedonistic path of drugs or alcohol or gambling, chasing pleasure. I don't care how I feel. I don't care if I feel happy or sad. It doesn't really affect what I do each day. I do the exact same things. I act the exact same way. I don't care. I don't put weight to the significance of the emotion. So I always consider myself a happy person, but if I woke up and I was slightly less happy one day than another, it wouldn't affect anything I do and I wouldn't put any relevance to it. I'm human, and that's life. And so am I any happier now that I have hundreds of millions of dollars than before I was broke? But I was never unhappy. I'm the same state that I was then that I am now. I have work to do and I will do it. It's as simple as that. Well, also there's no light without dark and there's no joy without pain. You can't have a rainbow without a little rain. Exactly. And no matter how hard you chase pleasure and happiness, there's going to be dips and troughs in between. There's going to be come downs and downtrends, and you're going to have the juxtaposition between that time you were laughing your head off and acting giddish like a child and the time that you feel depressed as such. And I think it's much better to just adopt a very disciplined, stoic mindset. I'm always the same base level of happy regardless. If I lost all of my money today, I would be the same happy. If my net worth quadrupled, I'd be the same happiness. As long as I am alive, which is a struggle, unfortunately, in the current climate, but as long as I'm alive and the people I care about and love are alive, and as long as God gives me the honor of doing my duties and providing for the people I care about, as long as I get to wake up and know that there's a whole bunch of people in the world who need me and I get to work hard to please them and do good for society and good for the world, then I'm a vessel of God and I'm happy enough to survive. That's all I look at it as. I don't ever consider how do I feel. That doesn't cross my mind. I have things to do. I have things to do.
You're too busy to think about that.
I'm too busy. I have things to do every single day. I have very important things to do, and how I feel really is not going to affect how I complete those tasks.
Right.
And when I speak to men, they say I'm unhappy or I need to be happier. I think that's absolutely the wrong frame of life. You're a man, you have duty, you have honor, you have things you should be doing regardless of how you feel. And the people who are perma-obsessed with happiness or sadness, I just think it's the wrong paradigm to view the lens of life. I think you should get up and do what needs to be done. You're distracted and you're self-obsessed. When you're sad, you're sitting at home, me. It makes you very selfish. You don't care about your community when you're sad. You don't care about your country when you're sad. You don't care about the injustices of the world when you're sad. You don't care about trying to actually go and make the world a better place because you're too busy thinking about yourself. So they want you miserable, semi-depressed, sad, unhappy, so that you can sit at home and accept them doing whatever they want to the planet and other people without ever talking or standing up or doing the right thing. If you're happy and motivated, you're going to be far more likely to fight against injustices. So the fact that I have mass influence and I can just make people feel better is a threat to them. They don't want me to make people feel better. They talk about men's mental health and pretend to care, but when I come along and genuinely help and stop people from committing suicide, they delete me. They don't want that. They want everybody semi-depressed. They want you miserable. They want you distracted so that you're too busy crying your eyes out in a room somewhere or sitting in deep thought, worrying about this girl who left you so they can just continue to run the world. We're currently in a fight of good versus evil. It's genuinely that serious. This is whether it's the Bible or the Quran or any superhero movie, this is the battle of good versus evil. And anybody who's sitting who doesn't see that every armed conflict on the planet, the conflict for our minds, the way the Matrix is attempting to control us, this is genuinely a battle of God versus Satan. And if you think that you can just sit idly by while these two titans go to war and you're not going to end up caught up in the crossfire, then you're absolutely and utterly ignorant at best, a coward at worst, and I think it's most likely cowardice. We're in the middle of the greatest battle that humankind has ever faced, and unless people stand up and actually try and fight hard for good and for God.
The reason I talk about not to tell people I've had a hard life, it's to make it clear to people who are complaining about their own life that the bad things that are happening are what you need to become the man that you want to be. I can't talk about women because I'm not. I actually think trauma is terrible for women because it masculinizes. They become cold, and that's not attractive, right? We want feminine, pure, protected women. I don't want a woman to ever go through anything bad in her life. A man should go for her, protect her. So I think that's how she's her best self as a woman. But I think to be your best self as a man is the absolute opposite. Someone emails, "This has happened to me." I'm like, good. No, what do you mean good? It's terrible. How else are you going to become important? How else are you going to find endless fire to get up and struggle in the face of the competition that's out here? How else are you're going to do all that with a nice cushy life? If any man's honest with himself, think about the biggest transformative stages in your life. Think about the times you got the most work done. It was a bad part of your life. You were heartbroken, or you lost a house, or broke, or whatever. That's when you did shit. When everything was fine, when the woman's still sucking the mortgage is paid, dinner's on time. It's kind of doop-de-doop-de-doo, little by little, do a little bit of work, do a little bit of relax. But the big events come from trauma. This is it. So it's a cheat code. It's a cheat code to climb the mountain. So when I get a message from whoever, and it goes, my wife left me, I'm devastated. I say, I understand. I completely understand how hard it can be to lose a woman that you've given your entire life and you've done so many nice things. And then because of one thing you did, her innate and absolutely insane level of ungratefulness has turned her bitter, and she now talks to you like she hates you over one thing you've done after thousands of efforts showing how dedicated you are to her. And even now that you're prepared to die for her, she doesn't give a shit about. I understand that pain. But my answer is good. It's still good. Now take all of that pain, instead of email, and then you're gonna become the kind of person.
Why does it have to be quick? Why does it have to be easy? Why do you think life is all quick and easy? Why can't it be hard and difficult? Why can't you suffer? Because suffering is what gives it value. If everyone had a six-pack and it was quick and easy, then it wouldn't be valuable, would it? If everyone walked around with a six-pack and they got it easily, then no one would give a shit. The whole point is that it's difficult to get. Value is linked to difficulty. If you want something that is valuable, you need something which is difficult to obtain. You shouldn't be thinking about quick and easy. You should be thinking about hard, suffering, pain, going through it. That's what you should be thinking about. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because when it is done, then everyone's going to know that I went through something difficult.
Nobody, absolutely nobody, gives a fuck about you as much as you're going to have to do things. Nobody cares about you as much as they need to care to fix your life. But nobody is going to come to your bed, drag you out of bed, drag you to a job, force you to work hard. You are never going to have any of the things you want if you do not get them yourself. The only person who's going to make me happy and live a life that I want to live is me. Nobody's going to do it for me.
People say, Tate, what motivates you? And I find that I think that's a stupid question. I was a 4-time kickboxing world champion. For 12 years, I trained 5 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I was motivated to train probably about 25% of the time. The rest of the time I went because I am disciplined.
If I wake up and I'm unhappy, I will do the exact same things as if I am happy. I will go to the gym the same. I will work the same. How I feel has no impact on how I live my life.
We're grown-ups and we have responsibilities and we have problems and we have pressure, and you don't necessarily have to be happy to perform, you know, and happiness will come at the end of the performance anyway. But if your number one goal as a man, if your number one mission in life is just to be happy, that's going to be an extremely vaporous existence. You're not going to be a man of substance.
Your ability to deal with stress, the amount of stress you can deal with as an individual, is directly correlated to your success level. If you can deal with stress all day, you're going to be successful. If you collapse under stress, you're not going to be successful. There's no way to the top without stress involved.
But there is a massive correlation between success in life and stress tolerance. The more stress you can tolerate, the better your life's going to be.
One of the only things in this world you can control is your state of mind. You can't control the weather. You can't control other people. You can't even control your health. One of the very few things in the world you have genuine control over is your state of mind. If you can't control that, then you're just a feather in the wind.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the way I talk and the things I say. Some people find it inspirational, and some people are upset by it, and their ego prevents them from learning from it.
Yeah.
But it's the kind of people who are really genuinely upset by what I say are the kind of people who can't truly learn anything and become successful.
Yeah.
I obviously know what I'm talking about to some degree, right? So if Mike Tyson walks in here and tells you he's going to teach you how to box and says you can't fight, you're a puss, if that upsets you, then you can't learn, right? It's Mike Tyson. Just shut up and listen. If someone Richard and me comes along and says, Andrew, you don't know shit, you're a dumbass and you're a brokey, I'm gonna sit there and go, okay, maybe I'm a brokey, Elon. Tell me something, right? I'll listen. But if you're gonna sit there and go, don't call me names and not listen, you're never gonna get anywhere, right? You don't become the master unless you're very, very good at being a student. And I've always been very, very good at knowing when to shut up. If you're gonna sit there and go, I don't want to work more than an hour a day, well, the guy who does want to work more than an hour a day is gonna beat you. And no matter how smart you are, there's always a smart dude who's doing the same smart work you are for more hours than you're doing it. That's just the nature of the game. Get up off your ass and work first. Because there's no such thing as completely, truly 100% passive. You're gonna have to check on it. You're gonna have to maintain it. You're gonna have to find a new tenant for that property. You're gonna have to make sure that DeFi crypto farm you're in doesn't go to zero. It's not a bug. You're always gonna have to keep an eye on it, right? But the idea that people with no money are already so concerned with making money without work is amazing to me.
Sauce up on you too. You know I'm dripping, baby, and you dripping too.
I know you love me.
Weapons of any kind.
I don't give a who you bring. All right, good morning, guys. I'm very sleep deprived today. What else is new? I gotta go get my morning caffeine. You guys might remember the Dunkin' that we went to when that guy called his coworker a bitch. He saw the video and sent me an email saying he wanted to film with me. I was like, yeah, that would be dope. So I gave him my number. And then at the last second, he texted me that he doesn't want to be in the video anymore. And this was like a couple months ago. So I get a random text the other day. They're like, Loaf, I want to be in a video. I'm like, who is this? They're like, oh, it's the guy from Dunkin' that made you your coffee. So I assume.
Take 10 minutes.
You may feel fired up for 10 minutes after this little talk, but you're not going to feel fired up forever. You need to put systems in place. You need to get discipline. And like Justin says, you need to get an atmosphere of people around you who are going to keep you accountable and not make it easy for you to continue to be a fucking nobody. And then you're going to fix your life. Otherwise, you're going to stay a nobody. How do you be successful as a man? We'll talk about it. First thing, you need freedom, because you ain't a man if you're not free. If you're working your ass off, you're a slave. And you may sit there and go, I'm not a slave, I get paid really well. Listen, the slaves got free food and free shelter in exchange for work. Now all they've done is got rid of the food and shelter people, give you dollars, which you spend on food and shelter. And you basically have nothing left. So you're still a slave. So first thing you need is freedom. If you're not free, you're not a man. First thing. You're not a successful man. So you should always be working towards freedom. And I mean freedom with your time. Do what you want. Freedom with your location. Go where you want. There's a riot. Cool. Go in Tokyo. See you later. Bye. Go into Australia. See you later. Bye. Freedom, one thing. The next thing that constitutes success as a man is your network. Who are you talking to? Who are these people? Who will answer your phone calls? Listen, I got 2 phones. Identical, almost. Twins. I got 2 phones right here. And I can call one of many multi-millionaires. And when they see my name, they're going to pick up the phone. They're going to be like, oh, shit, Tate. Oh, wait, guys, wait. They're going to stop their conversation and be like, whoa, fuck, Tate wants. What's up, Tate? Because they know I don't call for no bullshit. They'll be like, oh, money phones right now. So I can call multi-millionaires right now. I can have the best idea in the world. I can call a bunch of multi-millionaires right now and say, look, I need 100 million. Here's my idea. Boom, 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 boom. We can make something happen. You can't do that. I can do that. Freedom network. And then you get into the aesthetics of life. For people to view you as successful, you need good body language. You need physical presence. A man who's not dangerous, a man who has no physicality, will never be seen as successful. Oh, I'm successful, I'm rich, and yeah, but I'll break your neck. Look how big my hand is. I'm gonna grab you by your neck and choke you till you die. Who's successful now? I'm breathing and you're not, so I'm more successful than you. You can't be a little bitch. And I understood this from a young age as well. So I'm sitting there at a young age thinking, I need to get a network of high net worth individuals who are, or not even rich men, but men who are driven, men who are making money. And I need to find a way to talk to them, work for them, learn what they know so I can become one of them. I need to get body language and physicality. I need to become big and dangerous. I need to be able to display that without saying it. I need women in love with me. I need beautiful women who adore me. I need these things because this is what shows the world I'm the fucking dog. So I'm sitting there and I understand what I need. And I knew this at 21, 22. A lot of you people are older than this. Older than me. You're older than I was. I'm telling you something. You're sitting there going, yeah. Didn't even cross your motherfucking mind. You've been too busy jerking off to Pornhub and not thinking about what you actually need to do to be successful in this life. So these are the things you need to be a high value man. Because if you have all those things and then you get some money and you have geographical and time freedom, you're now genuinely successful.
Your mentality is heavily linked to your reality. And the fact that most people have such weak mindsets comes from the fact that they have a weak life, a weak body, a weak social circle, a weak network, a weak bank account, a weak relationship, and then their mind is weak. Well, of course. Whereas if you had a group of soldiers around you, men who were dedicated, who would ride or die with you, If you were strong, if your woman would never leave you no matter what because she idolizes you, then your mentality would be strong. Your mind would be strong by extension. So if someone comes to me and goes, I doubt myself, I usually look at them and go, yeah, I understand why. You're a little fat piece of shit. You're stupid. Of course you do.
Hey, Andrew, so how do I get like a six-pack quick? What's the fastest way to get a six-pack?
Why does it have to be quick? Why does it have to be easy? Why do you think life is all quick and easy? Why can't it be hard and difficult? Why can't you suffer? Because suffering is what gives it value. If everyone had a six-pack and it was quick and easy, then it wouldn't be valuable, would it? If everyone walked around with a six-pack and they got it easily, then no one would give a shit. The whole point is that it's difficult to get. Value is linked to difficulty. If you want something that is valuable, you need something which is difficult to obtain. The fact that you just said you wanted it quick and easily shows that your whole mental model is fucked. You shouldn't be thinking about quick and easy. You should be thinking about hard, suffering, pain, going through it. That's what you should be thinking about. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because when it is done, then everyone's going to know that I went through something difficult. Why do you want it to be quick and easy?
Success is the most overused word. Because we talk about success. Well, this guy's, he's really successful. Not these motherfuckers. So let's say I'm working at a company. Yeah, I'm the big boss. Let's say I'm a guy. I go college. I go university. I go to this company. I work. I become a manager. I'm on $150,000 a year. I got a company BMW. And I wear a suit. And everyone at my job does as I say. By all measures, I'm a success now. But here's the truth. When I leave that company, no one gives a fuck about me. I'm a nobody outside of that one building where I'm a little bit important. My wife doesn't want to suck my dick because I'm fat, because I didn't have time to train, so all I did was work. I got a BMW. BMW. I know hoes with BMWs. BMW. I didn't even consider that a car. BMW. That's not a luxury car. That's fucking basic. I'm pushing supercars. You're a nobody. You're not successful for shit. Success for a man actually comes in many realms. It's actually nothing to do with being good at your job. Having money, yeah, but you don't have to be good at your job to have money.
Depression is the ultimate motivation. Oh, so you're depressed. Okay, you come along to me and you tell me you're depressed. I expect to see a huge list of what you're achieving per day. If you're unhappy with your life, if you're depressed, I don't expect you to be popping pills and sitting laying in bed. I expect you to give me a huge list of everything you're achieving per day. Depression's a fantastic motivation. You know, but people are told the opposite. No, you feel depressed, that's wrong. You should be happy anyway. Take the pills, stay home, take some time off. Complete garbage. You're depressed? Okay, get up, go for a run, lift more weights, make more money, get a second job, get more girls. Like, you can outrun depression. I'm a man who's always believed, and I think every man understands this, action over inaction. And I think it was General Patton who said, a good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow. You gotta do something, and you gotta do something fast. Yeah. You're just sitting around talking about it and hoping for things to get better. I don't know about you gentlemen, but every time I ran out of money in my bank and I thought I'm gonna sit around and hope for something to come, it never really worked out. Right. It never worked out, you know? It's like you can't be sitting around waiting for things to happen to you. Also, I think, especially in the West, a lot of people's problems are all in their mind. And I'm not saying that mental conditions aren't real, because absolutely some are. But I try and explain to people, look, the only thing on the planet you have genuine control over is your state of mind. Like, you can't even control your health. You might get hit by lightning. You can't control other people. You can't control the weather. You can't control anything. The only thing you can affect in genuine real time is how you feel in your head. If someone comes to me and goes, oh, I get really shy and anxious, I'll say, so? Right. Not, oh, okay, that must be horrible. No, so? Do it anyway. Yeah, but I'm shy. I don't care. No one cares. The whole world doesn't care. Nobody cares. If you could drop dead tomorrow, the world wouldn't care. The sun's still going to rise. People are still going to go to work. So you're going to sit there and worry about speaking? When people come to me and say, I'm not happy, I say, why should you be happy? And we're all adults here. This infantile mindset that we're all supposed to be like we were when we were 3 years old, and oh, something shiny, laugh all the time, run around in circles. We're grown-ups, and we have responsibilities, and we have problems, and we have pressure, and you don't necessarily have to be happy to perform, especially if you're a man. Like women have this, I guess to a degree, they're born lucky. Women have this mindset where people expect women to be happy. Women need to be happy. But as a man, you have a burden of performance. As a man, you shouldn't be waking up going, how do I get happy? As a man, you wake up and say, okay, how do I perform? You know, and happiness will come at the end of the performance anyway. But if your number one goal as a man, if your number one mission in life is just to be happy, that's going to be an extremely vaporous existence, and you're not going to be a man of substance. The men of substance out there are not necessarily happy people. Mike Tyson wasn't happy when he was smashing people's faces in. That's not how you get there. You don't get there being happy. It's just a complete, the whole mindset, the whole idea that, we all need to be happy all the time is the reason you have men on the streets taking drugs, looking for a quick fix because they don't want to do any real work to get any genuine fulfillment. So they end up shooting drugs, running around being fools. Yeah. And that's what happened. Motivation isn't real. Everyone says this. Motivation is not real. Discipline's real. I do not feel like training, but I still train because I'm a disciplined individual. You don't get to go through life only doing the things you feel like doing. Do you know who gets to do that?
Women.
Beautiful women. Beautiful women get to do what they feel like doing. As a man, you have to do the things you're supposed to do because what we said earlier is absolutely true. It's player versus player, my friend. And I wake up and I decide, even though I don't feel like working, I'm going to work my ass off. And you wake up way down there, peon, and you can't be bothered to work. What chance do you have against men like us? You don't stand a chance. Now, if you're going to wake up and look in the mirror and understand that you're absolutely not only crushable, that you're a rabbit and that lions exist, and that's not going to motivate you to do something about it, there's no point in asking us a question. You know exactly what you need to do. If you want to stay killable, then stay killable. But I can't live that way. I would refuse to live that way. It's a disgrace to my bloodline. It's a disgrace to my parents who struggled to raise me for me to be anything other than the best version of myself. That's honor. I have honor to my last name and to my ancestry. This is down to you, my friend.
Dans la vie, il y a ceux qui ont de la chance et ceux qui font leur chance. Alors voici une chance en or de passer à l'électrique à la vitesse Mach-E. En ce moment, louez la Mustang Mach-E Select 2024 à traction intégrale pour 128 $ par semaine sur 60 mois avec 0 $ d'acompte. Valeur au détail de 49 253 $, incluant les incitatifs gouvernementaux. Voici votre chance d'obtenir le plein rabais du gouvernement provincial pour passer au volant d'une légende. Rendez-vous chez votre détaillant Ford ou visitez Ford.ca pour les détails.
You only have to ask a stupid question once. You ask a stupid question, and if you're in a crowd and you ask a stupid question, 80% of the people in the crowd have the same question. They're just too cowardly to ask. But you ask and then someone actually tells you, you never have to ask that question again. You're no longer stupid. What stupid thing am I doing that I could quit doing? That I would quit doing? Because those aren't the same thing, right? Because you know there's stupid things that you're doing that you're just not going to quit doing because you like them. But there might be something on the edge there where you could stop that. If you want to know something about yourself, sit on your bed one night and say to yourself, you got to mean this. Like, you got to be desperate. This is no game, this. My life is not everything I want it to be, and perhaps it's not everything that I need it to be. And by need, I mean my life is so unbearable that the suffering that's attendant upon that is make me nihilistic, cynical, bitter, resentful, driving the proclivity to see evil everywhere except within my own heart. Like, these are problems, man. And you ask yourself, you sit on the bed and say, okay, man, I'm ready to learn something. What's one thing I'm doing wrong that I know I'm doing wrong that I could fix, that I would fix? It's like, you meditate on that, you'll get an answer. And it won't be one you want, but it'll be the necessary one, you know, and it's often something that will point you to small things. Like, that works. You start making those micro improvements, like real micro improvements, real on the ground, actual micro improvements to things you know that are wrong, you'll improve unbelievably rapidly. The great people I know are brutally truthful to themselves and other people, and they have insanely adventurous lives. Get rid of everything you say that you only say to impress other people, and just see if you can say what you believe to be true. That's an adventure. That's the thing about the truth, you know? Well, you got to ask yourself, if you're not speaking the truth, who is it that's talking? If you're saying something that you do not believe to be true, it's not you talking. It's something else. It might be the part of you that wants to manipulate the other person into delivering what you think you want from them. Well, what is that spirit of manipulation that you've allowed to possess you? It's not you. Let's say you decide to live your whole life in that instrumental manner. You're going to craft your words like the student who says, well, I'm going to write what the professor wants to hear so I get the grade. It's like, well, you just turn yourself into that. Well, who is it that's doing that manipulating? It's not you, because those aren't your words. So even if you get the grade, it's not you that got the grade. It's the false you. It's the manipulative you So you do that your whole life, you don't have your life. And then you think, well, God, that was a miserable life. I manipulated everybody. They were so damn stupid. They were sucked in by it. They're all contemptible. Everyone does it, you know, which they don't, by the way. And so that's a pathway to bitterness. Partly because if you're a manipulator and you use your language falsely, you don't live your own life. You live the life of whatever possesses you when you think it's you manipulating. And so you live the life of the spirit of manipulation.
There's a book. There's a book called About Face. It's about a guy that was in the Korean War and then he was in the Vietnam War, and his name is Colonel David Hackworth. When I was on deployment, I would open up that book anywhere and I would read 2 pages or 3 pages before I'd go to bed if I was in my bed that night. And there were so many lessons that correlated to what I was actually going through. And a real obvious example was when you read, you can learn, and you don't have to go through the school of hard knocks. You don't have to get punched in the face repeatedly with things that turn out to be situations that other people have absolutely gone through. The level of capability increases so much by seeing something one single time. Well, if I see something one time, I'm infinitely better than if I'd never seen it before. It's like those little puzzles. They give you a little puzzle, some kind of a mind bender, right? The mind benders only work on you one time. The riddle only works on you one time. Then you go, I know the answer to that. That's the answer. You never get fooled by that again. So just seeing it one time, you're infinitely better. So when you read enough, you're capturing all these lessons.
Of course, you want to put the book on. You want to become that person. That can rattle you up, man, especially if the person is thinking all sorts of things that you've never thought. I mean, I love reading for that reason. I could pick my peers too, which I really loved. It's like, well, you know, I have these people around me, but then there's these people who've lived before me and in different places, and I can set them up on my shelf. I can enter into their world, and I can benefit from everything they've thought and saturate myself with that person. It's very disruptive, especially if the person that you're reading has a mind that's more powerful and more well-developed than your own. It was very disruptive, but unbelievably useful to try on other people like that. And you get the benefit of their entire life distilled into their book. You know, it's 30 years of work. I read this one book called The Neuropsychology of Anxiety, which it's a great scientific work. It's a very hard book. I think it has 1,800 references, something like that. And this guy, Jeffrey Gray, he actually read all those references and he understood them. And so it took me 6 months to read the book, but I got an entire education out of it. I got to experience in 6 months what it took him 30 years to learn. Like, what a gift that is. It's unbelievable. What were you reading when you were in university? Was it fiction, novels? Was it nonfiction? What were you focusing on?
As trite as this may sound, it was actually the most impact was from Shakespeare. It was the most impact on multiple levels. And I'll tell you the primary level. And when I've covered Shakespeare on my podcast, I explain this to people. People think, well, you know, I didn't really understand. I read it, I didn't understand it. If you think you're going to just pick up Shakespeare, open it up and read it and understand it, you're not going to, because it's barely written in English. It's barely written in English. It's almost another language. So what you have to do is you have to start to interpret it. And so what I realized with Shakespeare is, number one, the weight of the words, that these words were so pregnant with meaning that you had to pull those words and parse those words and pull those words apart to see all the depth that each individual word had, and then the way that they're put together. And what was great about this was, by the time I was back, because then I went right back into the SEAL teams, and somebody would hand me a rules of engagement document that was written by some lawyer in Washington, D.C., and I'd pull it out and say, wait a second, this word, I don't know what this word means. So let's pull this word out. Let's see what this actual definition of this particular word is and how that changes my viewpoint of these rules of engagement, and how can I translate that for my troops so that they actually know what to do. So that part for me was, from a reading perspective, starting to read Shakespeare and saying, oh, okay, you're not going to understand this. And if you don't understand something, that's okay. You pull out the Oxford English Dictionary and you look it up. And then you not just find out what the meaning of the word is, but what's the root word and where does it come from and what kind of depth and what kind of...
Yeah, and that's really, that's unbelievably useful too. Virtually every word is like that because a word is an ancient artifact. It's like an animal in some sense. It has an evolutionary history and it transforms across time. And each word it carries the echoes of its past with it too, because each word attracts other words in a particular unique way. So it kind of lives in a word ecosystem as well. And the ecosystem contains information about the history of that word. And you think, well, why is that important? It's like, well, hey, guess what? You think in words, you talk in words. You have all these archaic entities, these words, these living entities that you use. It's like the more you know about them, the more you know about you, the more you know about other people, and the better you are at formulating and communicating your ideas. There's nothing lost in that kind of investigation. There's nothing but gain there. Your ambition, if you have any sense, is actually to become competent.
Do you want to be competent and dangerous, or do you want to be vague and useless? It is definitely the case that there is no more exceptional form of the capacity to be dangerous than to be articulate. And so it's a moral endeavor in some real sense. Right? To become articulate is to become the master of your own tongue.
Every advantage comes with a disadvantage. So if you're extroverted, you're social and you're positive, but you're impulsive and you can tilt towards hedonism and you can't stand being alone. No matter where you land in the temperamental landscape, you're going to have your associated faults and temptations. You got a goal, and you'll see that as you progress towards the goal, there'll be obstacles that emerge, and some of them you don't want to confront. That's why it's useful to order your room. Chaotic room makes you anxious. Why? Too many pathways, man. People don't really repress the things they don't want to face, they just fail to unpack them. You want a horizon of ever-expanding possibility. We're built to walk uphill, and when you reach the pinnacle of the hill, you want to stop and appreciate the vision, but the next thing you want is a higher hill in the distance. Beware of unintended consequences. It's like, oh no, this thing will just do what I want it to do and nothing else. It's like, no, it turns out that not only is what we want from each other the real thing, but that's also the adventure of your life. And so if you aren't truthful, and that means, unfortunately, especially at the beginning when you start to be truthful, it means deeply coming to terms with your inadequacies in humility. So it's very painful. Without that, you don't have the adventure of your life. You have the role that you acquiesce to. And that'll take all the meaning out of your life. It's good for you to go take your place in the world. Have some ambition, have a vision, have a goal, have a strategy. Try to be a good person, not because it's your duty precisely, because that's the proper way to live. You sit on the bed and say, okay, man, I'm ready to learn something. What's one thing I'm doing wrong, that I know I'm doing wrong, that I could fix? You meditate on that, you'll get an answer. You grow in proportion to the weight you take on voluntarily. And it's also true that we have no idea what the upper limit to that is. It's from the uphill climb that we derive our value, and I mean this technically. So almost all the positive emotion we feel, especially the emotion that fills us with enthusiasm, and that's experienced in relationship to a goal. And so in some sense, you want a goal that you can never attain. So you can always move closer to the goal that recedes as you move towards it. You think, well, that's frustrating. It's like Sisyphus pushing the rock uphill. But it's not, because as you pursue that goal, you put yourself together and your life does get better and richer and more abundant. And that's why the highest levels of virtue and goal are in some sense transcendent. You want them to be above everything you're doing so you can continually move towards something that's more sublime and better. That's what you are. You're here to live, not to sleep. And the problem with the vision of Mai Tais on the beach is that, well, first of all, that's a vision of drug-induced unconsciousness. Second, it's only going to work for about a week. Third, you're going to be a laughingstock in a month and depressed and aimless and goalless. You want a horizon of ever-expanding possibility. And so it does happen to people because they've staked their soul on the attainment of an instrumental goal. And it can be a pretty high-order goal, but then you think, now I'm there, now what? Well, the answer can't be, well, I'm going to live in the lap of luxury and never have to leave the face. What do you want to be, a giant infant with a gold bottle? You never have to do anything but lay in your back and suck. It's like, you see the problem with that as a conceptualization. It's no, you want to be like an active warrior moving uphill with your sword in hand. And that's dynamic, that's exciting. People are afraid of the truth because often if you reveal it, it causes conflict in the moment. Telling the truth is definitely an adventure. Seeking for sure, but also telling. Another way of going about it is to just say what you think and see what happens. That's an adventure because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So look, there's this old idea that it's necessary to have faith in the truth. And so here's a way of thinking about that. Someone asks you a question and you might think, well, here's the outcome I want. And so here's how I'm going to answer that question. So that's one way of approaching it. But another way of approaching it is, you ask me a question, I'm going to think about the answer, and I'm just going to tell you what I think. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, because I'm willing to see what the outcome will be, predicated on the idea that there isn't a better outcome than the one that truth produces. Even if it's harsh and terrible in the short term, and sometimes it is, it's like there isn't a better way of doing it. Now, you might say, well, how do you know that? And the answer is, well, I don't know that. That's why it's an article of faith, because I believe, and I believe this deeply, the being that you produce as a consequence of telling the truth is good, by definition, even though it's harsh and often uncomfortable, because you get in trouble. One of the things that I've really learned recently, or learned to articulate better, is that there's a very tight relationship between aspiration and responsibility. The first question might be, do you need to aspire to something? And the answer is, well, yes, because you have to do something. If you just sit there, you'll die. You can't just sit there. You have to go act out in the world. Okay, so act towards what? Well, that's whatever your aspiration is. You have to have an aim. Okay, well, what should the aim be? Well, it should be something worth doing, let's say. Why do something that you don't feel is worth doing? What do you think's worth doing? Well, if you watch other people and you judge when they're doing something worthwhile, you usually judge them positively if you see that they're taking responsibility, at least for themselves. What, do you want to be completely useless so other people have to take care of you? That's pretty pathetic. And maybe you could get your act together so you're taking care of yourself and your family. And maybe you could even do better than that and take care of yourself and your family and your community. Well, good for you. That's responsibility, and that's an aim. Well, here's one of the things that's cool about that, is that your life doesn't have meaning without aspiration or an aim. Okay, so you need a hierarchy of values. There's got to be something at the top. It's got to be something important. If you don't have that, your life doesn't have any meaning. So if you criticize the hierarchy, or even the idea of hierarchy, you destroy the idea of aspiration, and then people have nothing. Well, that's not helpful. People are built for a struggle and they're built for a weight, and you want to take on a heavy burden voluntarily. See if you can put yourself together. See what you can do out in the world while you're waiting to die. It's an all-in game. It better be worthwhile. If you gaze into the abyss long enough, you see the light, not the darkness. I'm betting my life on it. Bring it on. The adventure along the route, man. And I would say, where's that adventure to be found? You don't want someone else's fate. Man, your fate's enough. And your adventure's enough. It's plenty. It's more than you can ever fully realize. And so that's also part of the reason that we all believe that the individual has some intrinsic dignity. It's, don't be so sure that your position and your room is so damn trivial. It might be your attitude towards it that's trivial. And if you're in dire straits and dire circumstances, just look at how much opportunity you have to make things better. Well, maybe the same thing's true of life, right? You bind yourself to it. And the tighter you bind yourself to it, the more you find out what it is. And that's like a radical embrace. We're built to walk uphill. And when you reach the pinnacle of the hill, you want to stop and appreciate the vision. But the next thing you want is a higher hill in the distance, because it's from the uphill climb that we derive our value. Almost all the positive emotion we feel, especially the emotion that fills us with enthusiasm, that's experienced in relationship to a goal. And so in some sense, you want a goal that you can never attain. There's nothing that makes you more formidable than verbal competence, than being able to articulate, be able to think, to marshal your arguments, right? Aim yourself in one direction. And you might say, well, I've gone halfway down this path and I found out it's wrong. Well, how do you distinguish that from just giving up? Well, that's a really hard question, right? It's a moral hazard. But then the absolute is, yeah, but you have to play one of them. You have to learn to play one of them. You have to become an expert at least one of them. And then that's not a relative proposition. And I believe that's true. So you want to commit to something. And then when you commit to something, you require yourself to bring all of your disparate components moving in a single direction, united in a single direction. So it's a unifying act.
You said that a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. How should people become more dangerous?
Oh, becoming more articulate is definitely, I would say, that's the primary array of weapons. I mean, physical prowess is something, and it's not nothing, that physical confidence that comes along with that as well. But the same thing replicated at the level of the ability to communicate and to think, that's a way broader field of battle and opportunity.
In a world with seemingly infinite options, it can be challenging to decide on the best course of action for one's life. Peterson suggests that a useful approach is to focus on what bothers you or what you find most challenging. These discomforts or challenges can be an indication of where one should focus their time and energy. By leaning into what is difficult or uncomfortable, individuals can discover their strengths and find direction in their lives. Be honest with yourself about your interests, abilities, and limitations, and pursue the path that aligns most closely with your values and passions.
There's a lot of things you could be bothered by. Like a million things, man. But some things grip you. They bug you, and they might make you resentful and bitter because they bug you so much. Like, they're your things, man. They've got you. So then I look for a question that I would like the answer to. I would really like the answer to it, so I don't assume I already have the answer, because I would actually really like to have the answer. So if I could get a better answer, great. And so that's the first thing. And that's like a prayer. It's like, okay, here's a mystery. I would like to delve into it further. Well, so that's humility. It's like, here's a mystery, which means I don't know. I would like to delve into it further, which means I don't know enough already. And then comes the revelation. It's like, well, what's a revelation? Well, if you ask yourself a question, it's a real question. Do you get an answer or not? And the answer is, well, yeah, thoughts start to appear in your head. So
from somewhere.
That's right, from somewhere.
Where do they come from? Do you have a sense?
Depends on what you're aiming at. It depends on your intent. So imagine that your intent is to make things better. Then maybe they come from the place that's designed to make things better. Maybe your intent is to make things worse. Then they come from hell. Let's say you want to become who you could be in the fullest sense. So let's say you're someone who's going to solve some serious problems. Okay, the first thing you have to do is admit to the seriousness of the problems. That's no joke. And so the first thing is just the terror of the problem itself. And that's enough to paralyze you, right? And that's the Hydra, that's the Gorgon with the head of snakes. It'll paralyze you and turn you to stone. That's the basilisk in the Harry Potter series. Mm-hmm. You look at it and it turns you to stone and lurks underneath everything, right? And it's malevolence and tragedy. And so there's that. And then the next is, well, you're going to take responsibility for that? You're really going to do that, are you? That's a hell of a load, man. And so it's daunting to even consider that. And then there's the discipline and responsibility that necessitates, which is also daunting. It's like, oh my God, the problem's that serious. I'm really going to have to get my act together in order to not contribute to it, much less solve it. And so the problem is terrible. And then the solution is daunting. But the upside of that is like, well, there isn't anything better to have than a problem that's worth solving, like that's really worth solving, right? And so the more of that you take on, the more you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, no matter what. Like, I'm getting up, I'm trudging forward. Doesn't matter what I'm suffering from, I've got things that need to be done. They're necessary. And that gives you that sense of purpose that is the antidote to bitterness. Okay, well, let's say you want your life to be meaningful. It's like, okay, then what you do matters. It actually matters. So that's an interesting thing. Well, so let's say you go over your past with a fine-tooth comb and you decide you're going to take responsibility for everything that you did that was wrong and everything that you failed to do that you could have done that was right. Like, does that change the world? Like, depends on how thoroughly you do it. you might say it changes the world like nothing else possibly can. And I think that that's actually right. You have to allow yourself a certain latitude for error. And that's a useful thing to know too. One of the things I tell people when they're trying to develop a vision for their life or an implementable plan is make a bad plan. Like, make the best one you can, but don't get obsessive about it. It's like, make a plan, implement it. You'll figure out when you implement it why it's stupid. Exactly. And then you can fix it a little bit. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not to who someone else is today. The same basic idea, right, is that you have to get your markers for success right, because otherwise you can end up in the situation you described, which is that, like, there's always people out there who are doing far better than you on pretty much anything you want to imagine. And if all you're doing is seeing yourself in their reflected light, let's say, then it's going to be pretty damn dismal. But it's not a good comparison, because you shouldn't just compare. Well, first of all, there's danger in just comparing yourself to others, period, because they're not you, and God only knows what struggles they had to undertake to get to where they were, or what burdens they're currently carrying that you're not aware of. You just don't know any of that. But you can certainly contrast yourself with yourself. And that's a lot better. It is the only way. Well, it's also the only way of really measuring anything approximating proper improvement. You can actually tell when you're a little better than you were yesterday.
Right.
So, and you can actually do that. That's another thing that's so interesting about it, is that you can actually make yourself a little better in some way, pretty much, well, I don't know if it's at every moment, but you can certainly do it every day. It's funny. I mean, you know, obviously, if you have a problem and you think about it, you can think up a solution. And it's not obvious how you do that. You know, I mean, it's not like you know how you're manipulating your neurons or something. It happens of its own accord in some sense. Like, you can participate in it, I guess, and you can interfere with it, and it seems to take a certain amount of willpower, but it still all happens mysteriously behind the scenes. One of the things that I've been so you know, there's lots of different ways to interpret the world, and you can maybe even make a case that there's an endless number of ways to interpret the world. And the problem with that is that it kind of disorients you in terms of what you should be doing. But just because there's a very large number of ways to interpret the world doesn't mean there's a very large number of productive, meaningful, and sustainable ways to interpret the world. And one of the things you do have to do is figure out how you can conduct yourself today so that you don't upset the apple cart in a week or a month or a year. And so, you know, what you do in some sense psychologically is you admit to yourself that your current frame of reference is faulty, and then you start opening the door to a different kind of thinking, which is more creative thinking. It's more lateral thinking, saying, well, I'm wrong, but that's not necessarily a problem, because I could be right if I thought some other way. Well, you know, that's great. Often it works.
Yeah.
There's almost no end to the utility of trying to figure out which ways that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of them. And every time you discover one, then you don't have to be quite so wrong anymore. That's a really good deal.
Yeah.
What's your time worth? You're a university student. Well, it's certainly worth minimum wage, because obviously, but it's worth way more than that, because if you spend a productive hour when you're 20, then you gain the benefits of that hour for the rest of your life. So there's the compounding effect of time spent when we were young. So I say, well, let's assume your time's worth $50 an hour, which I think is an underestimate, but whatever. Let's call it 50. We can call it 25, but we'll call it 50. If that's $2,000 a week you're wasting, it's $100,000 a year. It's like, how much better would your life be if you weren't wasting $100,000 a year? The Da Vinci Code. Everyone liked that. It sold a lot. And, you know, it was full of little mysteries, and it was full of hints that there was more to the world than you think, and which is definitely true. And that, you know, there was a way of getting access to that knowledge, and that it would really be worthwhile. And people like that. They like that idea. And the reason for that is because it's true. Learn to write. I'm dead serious. Like, I'm dead serious about that. Because writing is formalized thinking. And so the way you write is, first of all, you need a problem. Because why write if you don't have a problem? So this is good advice if you're just writing an essay, by the way, for your classes. It's like, pick a bloody problem that you want to write about, because otherwise it's false right from the start. It's up to you to engage with the material until you find something that grips you, that you desire to investigate. Okay, so you need a problem. Well, the next thing you need to do is, Well, you need to have something to say about the problem. Well, so reading is really good for that. Read as much as you can, get your hands on that addresses the problem. Okay, so now you know a bunch of things, or at least provisionally know them. You at least have access to them. Well, now you start sorting through it. It's like, okay, well, maybe I need to summarize what I've learned, and then I need to iron out the contradictions between what I've learned, and I need to elegantly formulate that, and I need to get my word choice right, and my phrase choice right, and my sentence choice right, and I need to organize the sentences into proper paragraphs, and the paragraphs into proper sequence so that I have a coherent argument. And at the same time, what you're doing is you're integrating your own personality at the highest and most abstract level of organization, and you're sharpening your tools, and you're putting yourself straight because you're learning to think. You learn to do that by writing. Many, many years. You hone your words. They're the most powerful thing about you, bar none. If you are an effective writer and speaker and communicator, you have all the authority and competence that there is. And so you're at university. Maybe you're taking a humanities degree. Well, what's the humanities degree for? It's to teach you how to think. You learn to think by writing. Now there's more to read, to speak, and all of that, but the best thing you can do is read and write every day, a couple of hours every day. Write about things you find important, and see if you can discover what you believe to be true. And that'll build you a foundation. And it's unbelievably practical. Like if you look at people who are phenomenally successful across life, there's various reasons, but one of them is that they're unbelievably good at articulating what they're aiming at, and strategizing and negotiating and enticing people with a vision forward. It's like, get your words together, man. That makes you unstoppable. And that's the core of the humanities, that idea. Just get your words together. Make yourself an articulate creature, and then you're deadly in the best possible way. So, and take that seriously. The best thing you can do is teach people to write, because there's no difference between that and thinking. And one of the things that just blows me away about universities is that no one ever tells students why they should write something. It's like, well, you have to do this assignment. Well, why are you writing? Well, you need the grade. It's like, no, you need to learn to think. Because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake. And those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way. So that's why you learn to write. It's like, and I can't believe that people aren't just told that. It's like, it's the most powerful weapon you could possibly provide someone with. And I know lots of people who've been staggeringly successful, and watched them throughout my life. I mean, those people, you don't want to have an argument with them. They'll just slash you into pieces. And not in a malevolent way. It's like, if you're going to make your point and they're going to make their point, you better have your points organized, because otherwise you are going to look like and be an absolute idiot. You are not going to get anywhere. The truth of the matter is that you have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined. And discipline is a matter of the imposition of order, and the order is necessary, especially for people who are hopeless and nihilistic. And what does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean, geez, I hate getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get ready for work. That just means that you're not very disciplined, or maybe that it might mean something deeper. But I'd start with lack of discipline before, rearranging your whole life. Because you might say, well, I hate getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning no matter what I'm doing, and then it's not your job. I don't mean don't do difficult things. I mean, watch yourself, and if you see that you're doing things that make you hate yourself, then consider the cost of continuing. If something's valuable, you'll make sacrifices to attain it. That discovery of sacrifice, I think that's what separates it's one of the primary factors separating human beings from animals. Because we discovered that we could let go of something we value in the present and we would gain something we value even more in the future. Lay a disciplinary structure on yourself, get the chaos in check, and then you can move towards a state that's freer, because it's discipline first. Like, look, if you're going to become a concert pianist, there's going to be several thousand hours of extraordinarily disciplined practice. That's the imposition of order on your potential, let's say. But what comes out of that is a much grander freedom. And so in virtually every freedom that you have in life that's true freedom is purchased at the price of discipline. But it's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. And I would say, start where you can start. You know, if something announces itself to you as in need of repair, that you could repair, then hey, fix it. You fix 100 things like that, your life will be a lot different. Now, I often tell people too, fix the things you repeat every day, because people tend to think of those as trivial. You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you know, you have your routines that you go through every day. Well, those probably constitute 50% of your life. And people think, well, they're mundane, I don't need to pay attention to them. It's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The things you do every day, those are the most important things you do, hands down. Well, there isn't anything better to have than a problem that's worth solving, like that's really worth solving, right? And so the more of that you take on, the more you have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, no matter what. Like, I'm getting up, I'm trudging forward. Doesn't matter what I'm suffering from, I've got things that need to be done. They're necessary. And that gives you that sense of purpose that is the antidote to bitterness. So, yeah, there's lots of reasons to, you know, because I've thought for a long time, imagine you have a choice in front of you, because you do. So here's the choice. Your life is either meaningful or meaningless. Okay, so let's go through the meaningless part first. Because you think, well, of course I don't want it to be meaningless. It's like, yeah, just hold on a second. Nothing you do matters. And so impulsive pleasure is the order of the day. No responsibility. You can do whatever you want. It's like Pleasure Island in Pinocchio, right? Or it's like Neverland in Peter Pan. You're still a kid. You can play all the time. Yeah. Impulsive pleasure and no responsibility. That's the reward for meaninglessness. Well, but then the other side is, okay, well, let's say you want your life to be meaningful. It's like, okay, then what you do matters. It actually matters, right? Make a mistake, hurts you, hurts your family, hurts the world in a deeper way than you think. And you have to be awake to that. And then you have to take it on yourself. So you're at a particular stage right now, and that stage would involve a particular worldview and the behaviors that go along with that. So the perceptions and behaviors. But it's not enough because you haven't mastered the whole world and you're making mistakes all the time. And then there's other neurological mechanisms that, so maybe that's a more left hemisphere phenomenon, the instantiation of that identity. Then there's right hemisphere mechanisms that are tracking your errors and sort of and keeping track of them. And the errors are an indication that your theory is incomplete. So the errors accumulate and the information around the errors accumulate, and another identity starts to become formulated, and it solves all the problems your previous identity did, but also some additional ones. When you have an aha moment like that, it's the manifestation of that next identity that's making itself known. It's you know, because it's being built from the bottom up. It isn't explicit yet. And then you'll encounter an explicit statement. You mentioned a couple there, and they map onto that. And that's the aha. It's like, oh yes, that's what ties together these things that I've been wrestling with in the back of my mind, right? Someone made it explicit. And that's that's one of the great things about language. That can also help fill in the gaps too, because then, you can start to make arguments based on that observation, that aha. That's the manifestation.
What is the consequence, the long-term consequence of acting? So many people, especially because of the world I live in Instagram and social media, we kind of build out these personas, and then we almost follow the implicit instructions that come with those personas.
Well, that's the problem right there, is that I think Pinocchio is brilliant work of art. If you're a puppet and an actor, and Pinocchio is both, at times in that movie, both a puppet and an actor. So why an actor? Like, why is there something wrong with being an actor? Well, the first question is, well, who sets your role? And then the second question is, who's pulling your strings? So you've put on this front that is there to make you popular and sexy and desirable and to mask from yourself your own inadequacies. But that's a role. Well, who wrote it? And for what purpose? And maybe you're acting out a tragedy. Maybe you're acting out Narcissus. You don't know, because you've put that on yourself in an attempt, in some ways, to deliver to people what they want, or more accurately, to look as though you're delivering to people what they want. And it's not nothing to do that, right? Because at least you're attempting, in some sense, to adapt to the social world. Someone who's really infantile and dependent, someone who's never left home, part of their problem is that they haven't crafted a persona. So you don't want to denigrate it entirely, but it's no substitute for the real thing. And it turns out that not only is what we want from each other the real thing, but that's also the adventure of your life. And so if you aren't truthful, and that means, unfortunately, especially at the beginning when you start to be truthful, it means deeply coming to terms with your inadequacies in humility. So it's very painful. Without that, you don't have the adventure of your life. You have the role that you've acquiesced to. And that'll take all the meaning out of your life. Right? Imagine that the world was constituted so that the true adventure of your life emerged as a consequence of truth in speech and action. Because that would be reflective of the real you, so it would be you living. And then imagine that the adventure that would occur if you dwelled in the truth would be so overwhelming that it would justify all the suffering.
I've really contended with this idea of struggle and chaos in my life and the role it plays. And once upon a time, I thought I was trying to rid my life of chaos and struggle. I thought that's why I was trying to get rich and get the Ferrari and the blonde. I thought that would create a life free of struggle. But then I looked at some studies and I heard about this thing called gold medal depression, when Olympians come back from the Olympics and they've lost orientation. And I tried to understand the role that struggle would have to play for me to be a fulfilled human being for the rest of my life.
We're built to walk uphill. And when you reach the pinnacle of the hill, you want to stop and appreciate the vision. But the next thing you want is a higher hill in the distance, because it's the uphill climb that it's from the uphill climb that we derive our value. And I mean this technically. So almost all the positive emotion we feel, especially the emotion that fills us with enthusiasm, that's experienced in relationship to a goal. And so in some sense, you want a goal that you can never attain, right? So you can always move closer to the goal that recedes as you move towards it. You think, well, that's frustrating. It's like Sisyphus pushing the rock uphill. But it's not, because as you pursue that goal, you put yourself together and your life does get better and richer and more abundant. And that's why the highest levels of virtue and goal are in some sense transcendent. You want them to be above everything you're doing so you can continually move towards something that's more sublime and better. That's what you are. You're here to live, not to sleep.
At UBC Solder, we don't just have mountain views. We have a global perspective, one that will teach you best practices, but more importantly, how to invent better ones. Because the world's greatest challenges need creative thinking, not convention. So if you think business needs a change, maybe the business world needs you. UBC Solder. Think outside. Visit solder.ubc.ca to learn more.
Don't use your illness as an excuse. right? Because you're already in trouble, kid. You know, you got your problems and they're serious. But if you can hold on to the distinction between the part of you that can, in spite of this, and the part that can't because of it, and not blur that distinction, then that's one more thing you have on your side while you're attempting to struggle through this. And there's an unbelievably hopeful message in there. And the message is, you're actually strong enough to do that. You just don't know it. And you won't find out till you do it. You can't find out till you do it. But if you did it, you'd find out that it was true. It's a massive risk. It's the ultimate in risks, right? You have to be willing to lose your life in order to find it. You can't make yourself interested in something. Interest manifests itself and grips you. That's a whole different thing. And so there's a calling in you towards what you're compelled by and what you're interested in. And sometimes that might be very dark, and sometimes not. But you're compelled forward by your interest. If you do not listen to that thing that beckons you forward, you will pay for it like you cannot possibly imagine. You'll have everything that's terrible about life in your life and nothing about it that's good. And worse, you'll know that it was your fault and that you squandered what you could have had. Like, there's always people out there who are doing far better than you on pretty much anything you want to imagine. And if all you're doing is seeing yourself in their reflected light, let's say, then it's going to be pretty damn dismal. You can actually make yourself a little better in some way. I don't know if it's at every moment, but you can certainly do it every day.
Well, it can go 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It can go in this kind of spiraling, but as long as you're going from low left to top right on the graph, you know, with
That's
the
right.
ball.
You're exactly right. So you're moving up to the top right-hand corner, but you do it like a thermostat. It's back and forth, looking for that center line. You have to overshoot on both sides to find it. So you have to allow yourself a certain latitude for error. And you need to know that the baseline is failure, because otherwise you'll blame that on yourself. Even if your idea is good, that doesn't mean it will be successful. There's so many things that have to be taken into account. So this is partly why persistence, and that's part of conscientiousness, is so useful. It's like, you know, what do they say? If at first you fail, then try again. And God only knows what you could have and give if you sacrificed everything to it. What you're willing to forego today's pleasure for tomorrow's advantage, and that's what sacrifice is. You're quite different from other people, and you shouldn't be comparing yourself to them because they're not like you. They don't have your family, they don't have your temperament, they don't have your troubles, they don't have your abilities. You could be a little better today than you were yesterday, and that's a good thing. You're a little better. That's a good thing. And you know, no doubt there are some things that you could improve. You know, if you take stock of where you are, you know, what your advantages are and what your disadvantages are, and then you start with a little humility on the path of incremental improvement. And you know, incremental improvement compounds. And so you can get a long ways, and trajectory in some sense is more important than position. The truth of the matter is that you have a lot of potential as a child, but none of that is capable of manifesting itself as freedom before you become disciplined. And discipline is a matter of the imposition of order, and the order is necessary, especially for people who are hopeless and nihilistic. And what does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean, geez, I hate getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get ready for work. That just means that you're not very disciplined, you know, or maybe that it might mean something deeper. But I'd start with lack of discipline before, you know, rearranging your whole life. Because you might say, well, I hate getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning no matter what I'm doing, and then it's not your job. I don't mean don't do difficult things. I mean, watch yourself, and if you see that you're doing things that make you hate yourself, then consider the cost of continuing. You know, if something's valuable, you'll make sacrifices to attain it. That discovery of sacrifice, I think that's what separates it's one of the primary factors separating human beings from animals. Because we discovered that we could let go of something we value in the present, and we would gain something we value even more.